Okay, let's see how we import Illustrator files into InDesign. Before we do our importing, let's take a look at the file in Illustrator. So here's the file. So you can see this file is made up of 3 layers. I have 3 different versions of the same logo, like so. So they're all in separate layers, and you can see they're not arranged one on top of another. Alright, let's close this. We don't need this anymore. Save changes? No. Alright, let's go back to InDesign and let's use our place command. This is DR logo. Now I definitely want to see the import options now. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key when I click open. Here we go. Let's take a look at these import options. Well, first of all, one thing you may find funny, it says place PDF, even though this is an Illustrator file. An Illustrator file is a kind of a PDF, so a lot of programs will recognize it as a PDF. Now let's look at our options here. I'm going to bring this to media, and let's see what that looks like. So my original Illustrator file was done on an 8.5 by 11 artboard. So if I brought this in now, it would bring in the entire artboard. But usually I don't need that. I don't need all that empty space. The one I like to use is a bounding box. This is going to make a box just big enough to enclose the artwork that I want to bring in. Now another thing we can do is select the layers. So I don't want everything. I'm going to turn off Dusty here, and I'm going to turn off the green. And so now it's just going to bring in my dark red and blue logo here. The other thing you want to take a look at is this. When updating link, keep layer visibility overrides. So again, this word overrides just means changes. So if you were to go to your Illustrator file and maybe turn layers on and off, when you go back to InDesign, you probably want things to be the way you left it. So that's what this is going to do. It's going to turn on the layers that you originally set. Alternately, you could choose use PDF's layer visibility. So that's going to be whatever the Illustrator files layers are at the moment. You know, what layers are turned on and off. So let's go back to keep visibility overrides, and let's say OK. So I get my familiar floating icon. Let's click on this. But now once this is in, I can make changes now too as far as which layers I want on and off. And this is also true in Photoshop files too. I can right click, go down to Object Layer Options, and I can turn different layers on and off if I want to use a different logo instead. And so even though they weren't stacked one on top of another, they're all coming back to fill in the same box. That's what that bounding box option does for us. Another thing we can do is, even if we apply an effect here in InDesign, let's apply a couple of things. I'll just do bevel and emboss. I'm just going to leave the default settings. Let's do a drop shadow. Again, I'll just leave the default settings and say OK. So even if I change the layer options now, it'll keep the effects. So you can see this is very, very handy. Okay, so that's it for Illustrator files for now. The next video is going to concern Photoshop layers and Photoshop layer comps. So we'll get a little Photoshop lesson along with our InDesign lesson. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.